Continue with the topic which we started, human. And I believe the next panel topic with the customer satisfaction is a good additional aspect. And we have now three guests which will share with you their views. I would love to start with Daniel, with a man, he has a lot of experiences, and I'm myself also very curious what he will tell about customer satisfaction. And of course, everybody can make also a little bit promotion for his brand. It is allowed, we are not on the television. Yeah? Daniel, please, welcome again.
Thank you, great to be here. Great to have the last slot of the day. It's always the best one to have, so thanks for having us. Whenever someone asks me about customer satisfaction, guest satisfaction, I think of my 96-year-old grandmother. And it was about a little more than a year ago that I started. I'm responsible for the Wyndham hotel group for EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, Africa, Eurasia, here's the plug, okay? So, Wyndham Hotel Group's the biggest hotel company in the world. We have about 7,800 hotels. We're also the biggest hotel company in Turkey. I think we're going to hit the 50 hotel mark this year. We have 16 hotels and growing in Istanbul itself. So it's an exciting place to be. Back to my grandmother. So I started with Wyndham a little more than a year ago. When I started, she said to me, "Oh, now you're a big shot. Can you get me a job?" And I said, "Sure, Grandma. What do you want to do?" And my grandma lives near our global headquarters outside of New York. So Grandma, sure, anything you want. You're 96. That's the perfect age. What kind of job would you like to do? And she said, "Well, my friends," and she lives in one of these retirement homes. It's like a nice hotel. But she has all of her little old ladies, they all have lunch together every day and they talk about their grandchildren. So they all say, "Well, you need to get a job in your grandson's complaint department." I said, "Grandma, why do you want to work in the complaint department?" She said, "Well, my friends tell me I'll be great because I can't hear a damn thing." And when you talk about customer satisfaction, it's actually the opposite, right? What we need to do to get the loyalty and get our customers coming back and our guests coming back time and time again is to listen to them. And it's so basic. And the luxury panel before was talking about getting back to the basics. And that's true whether you're talking about luxury or economy or anything in between. We need to listen to our guests. We need to create brands that speak to our guests. We need to empower our associates, our hoteliers, to serve our guests in the way that they want to be served. And as the millennial question, I hate the word millennial because I think it's a word that old people use. But the question about choice is absolutely right. And it doesn't matter if you're luxury or if you're an economy hotel. It's about providing the choice to your guests when they come in to have their needs served in the way they want it to be served. So that's what we're all about. When you get to our size and scale, it is about empowering, it's about localizing, it's about telling your Wyndham Grand event here in Istanbul, here are the basics. Beyond that, it's up to you. And we trust you that you're going to provide that service that keeps our guests coming back. So, is that...
It's a good start.
Okay, good start.
I would ask Nicolas. He's not working in the hotel. First, he has to present himself.
Not anymore.
Then it will be
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yes. But I saw you have a lot of experiences. But the main question to you is technology. Has technology changed this guest satisfaction, or technology has nothing to do with the guest satisfaction?
I think, gentlemen, just before I said it very well, it's a tool, right? And as a tool, technology is tremendously useful. It really has allowed us within the hotel operation and also within corporate and within regional areas to access information much faster than previously. So whereas in the past you had to hope that either someone would tell you about a dissatisfaction, for example, a complaint, or you might get the guest comment card. I started my career with Ritz-Carlton, so you sometimes got calls to my GM's, Erwin Schinner at the time, office and say, Nick, please come see me. That's when the guest complaints from last week arrived, right? On the comment cards. So at the time you were pretty much, you had to be fatalistic. You say, okay, I hope this person comes back so I can make amends, or perhaps we can call her. But the damage was done, and the ability to recover immediately was very limited. Nowadays, and that's a big if you use technology in a modern way rather than just as a digitalized form of the past processes, then you will get the information about your guests much faster at a time where you can actually activate that information. I think that's the great thing about technology. We've heard it from Omer before a little bit with the Twitter example. We can know more about our guest before he arrives, we can know more about our guest while he arrives, we can understand his experience during his stay, and we can get echo afterwards. So that really, in that form, technology really allows us to get much more alive feedback of how we're doing, who's coming to us, and we can activate that. Problem is, of course, that this is a consultant, of course, speaking. Sorry, I always got to talk about processes, but I'm a process geek, not a standardized process, but a process. The problem is that we have received this information and we have received this technology to a large extent, but a lot of the way that we do operations, and I used to be food and beverage director, I'm a foodie by trade, so the process of order taking, of taking reservations, of interacting with the guest to a large extent has not changed. So we don't use it. So when you have technology and you have guests that say, hey, I've told you so much about me, and you can go onto Facebook and you can check me out on LinkedIn and you can see my TripAdvisor comments, you actually should know a lot about me, yet you don't. And just because last time I made my reservation as N. Meyer and this time I made it as Nicolas Meyer, I'm still the same person, so you should be able to make that link. So technology is a tool. It's a great tool to give you information. It's also a great tool actually because it saves a lot of time in processes that used to be very time consuming. Theoretically, that should have freed up resources to take extra care of the guest. In reality, it probably has created extra dividends for the owners and the operators because that position was immediately rationalized. But so it's exactly that. If you have technology in an environment which already has the right setup to be guest-centric, empowerment is a very important one. Fun, which is what Omer, gentleman the other next to him said as well. If you have those two elements, then it's great. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. Otherwise, it's like you just spend hundreds of thousands of bucks on a glorified shoebox, basically. Yep.
Thank you. I love World Tourism Forum because it is one of the few organizations in Turkey which are really international. It is really world. The next gentleman, Stuart, is coming from Uganda. You are the first guy which I met from Uganda. You are not from Uganda, but welcome. Please, welcome.
Yes.
Are you first time?
No. I've been to Turkey many times.
Okay.
I'm in Africa. Go figure. So my company operates hotels across East Africa. So not only Uganda, but Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Eritrea.
Are there dangerous countries?
As dangerous as anywhere else,
Nothing more and nothing less.
more and nothing less. In fact, it's probably safer than it is in a lot of places in Europe. So much so that Marriott came and bought our hotel group a year ago. Protea Hotels was acquired by Marriott about a year ago. But what I've heard in the last sort of half an hour or two, in terms of repeat guest satisfaction, that kind of thing, it's a bit of a no-brainer. We as an industry have made it really difficult in the last few years. It's a very basic process. We've taken guest satisfaction to a science, but I'm staying in a hotel now that I won't mention. It's the first time I've met a general manager in a hotel in probably the last 5 years. We've taken our general managers, we've put them in a room in the back, and we've made them run really efficient businesses, but we've taken them away from the face of the industry. And it was actually really refreshing last night to meet somebody in the lobby and say, well, why don't you come through to the bar and let's have a cocktail and meet some other people. That's what our industry is about. There's a story that 2,000 years ago, a pregnant lady on a donkey and her husband went to a hotel and there was no room available. But the general manager was there and he found last room availability for them. Yeah. We tend to have lost that. And as a business, what we do is we hire the right people at the beginning. We're not process driven. We try and hire the right staff to do the right job. And we can use technology to anticipate guest expectations. The technology is not going to help you exceed them. The software that you put into the hotel, the people are going to help you exceed them. And it was mentioned earlier on in the luxury segment that people don't stay with buildings, people stay with people. And I've been in lots of meetings with my design teams and self-opinionated designers telling me that that's the best chair in the world. I don't stay in a hotel because of a chair. As we mentioned, you stay in a hotel because of the service you received at breakfast or the check-in. We're in the coffee and pillows business, and you've got to get those things right.
That's good statement, yeah, thank you. Wyndham is using, I'm sure, measurements fix or to manage all of these satisfactions, what we are doing about this, because how many hotels we have, 7,000, 8,000, something in that area. How we are doing this, it's crazy.
Yeah, we absolutely have lots of metrics, but I think we might have been the first hotel company to invite TripAdvisor to actually put their ratings on our own website. And we did that because, as you know, we've talked a lot about technology as a tool. We can't think that the industry is not evolving, and the way in which people look for hotels is not evolving. And if we are old school in the way we approach it, and think that we actually have control over the discussions that are out there, forget about it. We are, sorry for the American reference, we're Blockbuster Video, right? It's a industry that is well behind us, and we're not that. So we have to look at the way the future guest is going to book. So much of what we look at when we look at our guest satisfaction is what people are saying on sites like TripAdvisor. We don't hide it, because if you hide it, then everyone's suspicious of it. So anyone can go and look tonight or right now on their phones at what people are saying about our hotels anywhere in the world on our own very own website, where we hope that they book. And I think that is actually a very, very important next step in just allowing the visibility and being honest about our successes and our failures, and then working on the failures to improve it and communicate that with our guests.
Who is in charge of guest satisfaction in the hotel?
Who's in charge of guest satisfaction? Every associate in the hotel takes responsibility for it. Of course, the buck always stops with the general manager. But I think a good general manager empowers his or her people to make the guest happy. And again, that's not just a luxury concept. That's an everything concept. And we'll have a day's end somewhere where, you know, if the front desk associate senses that something went wrong, the proper GM has empowered them to fix that problem. And it's not to give them a week free, but it's empowering them to do something little. And it's those little things that really save guest satisfaction, because the resolution of the problem makes loyalty forever.
And what is the when you are taking the guest satisfaction in the US, Europe, Africa,
That's actually a really interesting question, because when you look at the part of the world that I look after, and the diversity is absolutely enormous. So what makes a guest happy in Istanbul might be different than what makes a guest happy in Dar es Salaam or in Munich. And what we have to do, and what we do with our brands, is we empower our local teams to provide services that keeps the local guests happy and coming back. Because your question is leading perfectly, so thank you for that. It's our philosophy in running a business and running a global business is that you have to run it locally. And you have to empower your teams locally and your people in the hotels locally to make the guests happy. And so, for example, we're in the process of opening a significant office in Istanbul. We have a small office today, and we're investing in Istanbul because we recognize that the Turkish market and the surrounding markets are very important for us. And how could I, from London, tell people in Turkish hotels how to keep Turkish guests happy? You have to be stupid or arrogant to think you can do that. So you need local people supporting local businesses. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Any questions for gentlemen? Everybody
Last slide of the day, yeah.
tired. Please.
Guest satisfaction is not globally scalable at all.
From a hotelier's perspective, guest satisfaction is measured by your level of repeat business. But speaking for somebody that runs hotels in Africa, as a guest, if you're traveling into Ethiopia, your guest satisfaction is ranked on whether you have electricity or not. Or you have drinkable water. So the playing field is not level.
There's pricing elements to that as well. So if you're paying £400 a night in London for a 4-star product, it is going to take a lot for you to be really excited about your stay. Whereas if you're in Berlin, where the ADR is lower, you can provide exactly the same service and get higher satisfaction from the same very person.
Actually, we did a good example of that last year. We did a very big study where we basically, it was a little bit popular science, I admit it, but we took about 8.5 million online ratings and we did the rankings per city. So which city is best in location, which has the best 3 stars for cleanliness, etc. It was fun. And a lot of our clients that came out of Dubai, for example, were expecting, we told them about the study and they were expecting, say, we're going to be number 1, 2, or 3, right? And it ended up they were number 15 out of 40. Number 1 was Johannesburg, sorry, and number 2 was Riga. And of course then we had the conversation with people in Dubai and they said, how is that possible? We said, well, there's an awful lot. So they made the mistake of assuming exactly that what is considered a satisfied customer is the same everywhere. So for example, Dubai scored really poor on location of hotels. Now if you've been to Dubai, I mean, compared to Johannesburg, you can't drive much further than 30 minutes in Dubai, maybe 40 if the traffic is bad. Whereas in Johannesburg, from the airport to certain places, it can take substantially longer, 3 or 4 times as much. Or Istanbul, for example. Yet the people in Johannesburg were, to a large extent, much happier with the location of hotels in Johannesburg than the people who visit Dubai. The reason is that the expectation is actually different, and that's the element that is not standardizable. It is, in Johannesburg, so many people before you go there will have told you about the horrible traffic, or Bangkok, Bangkok, oh God, worst traffic in the world, beautiful city, but horrible traffic. You'll waste your vacation on the highway, that when you actually have a good day, you say, well, that actually wasn't so bad. Whereas Dubai, in their advertising, actually took the Burj Al Arab, the Burj Khalifa, the Emirates Mall, picture all of them, pushed them together onto a poster and used that as an advertising thing across the world. A lot of people actually thought these things were right next to each other. And when they found out that there was nevertheless an $8 10-minute cab ride, they were like, this is really far. And this goes to service, this goes to expectations of sanitation, it goes to all these elements. So that's why the local element is humongously important.
I believe the gentleman. Somebody else had a question? Please.
So what you are saying that we should increase the level of expectation?
So the question was, we should decrease the level of expectation? Over to you.
That's always great, Really under-promise, that way you over-deliver and you're home free. That's what I try to do with what I say to my wife on the weekend, what I will achieve. And then if I do 2 of these things, she's really happy with me, actually. No, but I think it's the other way. So first of all, you want to ask yourself, what is the highest possible expectation I can, with good conscience, promise? So you got to be ambitious, and I think most are. And then you got to live up as close as possible to this expectation, or manage the expectation. And I think that's perhaps one element of luxury that I don't think luxury needs to be perfection. I think it needs to be the best attempt at perfection and a good way of handling the 0.x% when perfection doesn't happen. Because everyone that says it's always perfect, I mean, even if you go to Alain Ducasse or if you watch the movie Burn or etc., it never happens. Sometimes something is off. So I think by immediately managing, saying, hey, I probably haven't reached your level of expectation, let me first of all acknowledge that, let me apologize, and then at the same time, let me turn you and flip you around before you go out unhappy, then you're probably at the same point again in a very positive element. But no, you shouldn't lower it, you should make it transparent.
You know, I guess that also comes down to a rate perception issue. You know, what are you paying? What bang are you going to get for your buck? Now, you can stay at the St. Regis here and pay 350 euros a night for a standard room, I'm guessing. That's the same rate you're going to pay in Addis Ababa for a complete disparity of product. So it's how you manage the perception, it's how you manage the rate perception before that guest comes in.
That is until the Wyndham opens in Addis Ababa.
Please.
You said that you have to empower your staff. There was a project in Nigeria. In Nigeria, there is a big problem with staffing, and the service giving is kind of bad. So we decided to bring a company from outside, like Europe or French, maybe closer, to train these people heavily before starting. And still we were expecting some bad things to happen. But the point being is, since it's the disparity of service and expectation, where should we get these people from? You know, should we get them from the US, from the UK, from...
Look, I think it's very country specific, and I think it's very region specific. Service levels vary around the world. Hospitality varies around the world. The hospitality you'll receive in Southeast Asia is amazing. In other countries, not so hot. As a company, what we try and do with our hotels when we open, and because we trade in Africa, there's a lack of skill set because it's a new industry. So we'll bring in expatriate teams and we'll bring in trainers, etc. But our goal is always to have a locally owned hotel, managed by a local general manager, managing local staff. But that's a process. That process may take 5 years, it might take 10 years. If it's a fledgling industry in a new country, it might take you 20 years. But it's a process. It's not as easy as a quick fix, flip a switch, bring some people on a plane and train your staff. It doesn't necessarily work like that.
I can add one more point to that one. So yes, I said before, sometimes standardization helps, but for example, one area where standardization may actually have hurt the level of staff performance, if you so will, was in the area of recruiting. A lot of our clients always say, can you come help me increase guest satisfaction, process, get cheaper, get better, get more consistent, whatever. But one of the areas which I always find the most resistance from some operators and owners as well is to say, you need to spend substantially more time on the selection of your employees. I think most operators have understood and have made a very good effort in training, but training someone that perhaps is not, you know, the best, let's call it profile for a service career. You can tell him all you want about you must exceed the expectation, be empowered, be creative. If the person is rather an introvert person who feels I actually shouldn't be here serving, that success is going to be relatively limited. But they will go through the motions because they are still very conscientious and at times simply say, I need this job. But the element of recruiting, of spending a lot of time on recruiting in some, I've learned now at conference never to say operators in general, but many operators that I've seen don't spend that time. Last year I gave an online interview, you can look it up on Hospitality 250, where I said that most hotel operators spend more time on selecting napkins than on selecting an employee. I got a lot of calls back, so you can't say that publicly. I was like, is it wrong? It's like, no, it's correct, but it's not nice to say it. It was intended to do that, but so number one reaction to this, don't look at training first, go one step earlier and look at recruiting and selection. And that will not fix it, but it will help you to get on the right way there.
Please.
I should say about satisfaction first. Customer satisfaction is wrong at your sector. Just because you, as hoteliers, hotels, tourism, you call it guest satisfaction. That's why at most of the hotels, if they think the customer, so they make mistakes. But if they think about guests, yes, they are successful. Just because of CRM books I have written, that I need to underline it. I'd like to hear you.
I couldn't agree more. I actually have been hammering home with our team the difference between guests and customers. Customers are the people that our sales force is going out and speaking with. Guests are the people who are in our hotels. Sometimes they're the same people. But more often than not, we do need to concentrate on both guest satisfaction and customer satisfaction. But it's a different skill set, it's a different team, it's a different people. I couldn't agree more.
Can you see some trends, what guests would like to have in the future, for example, regarding sustainability or technique or what else?
Sure. I'll start. I'm sure everybody wants a piece of this one. I think we've all seen the headlines in the newspaper about the futuristic hotel with the keyless entry and the check-in with the machine in the lobby. I think it has been discussed earlier today that all of those trends they're all going to happen, but they're not going to be the only way. Now, it will depend on what type of hotel you're talking about. There's going to be a type of hotel in the future that is undoubtedly fully automated, but that is not anything kind of mid-scale and above. I can imagine an economy hotel where there's very few people. But for the majority of the hotels that we're talking about today, it's going to be a mix. So keyless entry is one of those headlines. Yeah, that's great. My wife is hugely worried because her phone always dies about what she's going to do when she gets to her room. She's like, oh no, here my phone's dead again. So what we do always need to give people choice. And it's always going to be a mixture of technology and people. But we're certainly going to see those trends become not trends but realities.
To add on to that, I suppose, again, it's very market specific. For every hotel there's a guest, and for every guest there's a hotel. If you're staying in a hotel in my region, in East Africa, we're going to steer away from that level of technology. I'm not going to have curtains in my room that open at the press of a button, because when there's no electricity you can't close your curtains. And when it breaks, there's nobody there to fix it. We're not going to have IPTV. We're going to have old-fashioned coaxial. The reason being, when somebody cuts the cable in Nairobi and there's no internet in East Africa for a week, you're not going to have a TV to watch. You also can't stream Netflix. So it's very dependent on where you are and where you're trading.
Please.
There are some quality differences between the management and franchise properties within the global chains. Do you think franchise properties affect negatively the overall guest satisfaction and brand loyalty of the global brands?
I'll have mine first, and then I'll drop Daniel. And we don't franchise. We manage only. You're up next. No, the reason for that is because we're in quite a difficult trading environment. Africa is a hard place to be. If I want to devalue our brand overnight, I'll start franchising. Brand integrity is key. It's my business. I'm a brand manager. And the harder the market, the more difficult the market you're trading in, the more easily your brand can be devalued. So we engage in management contracts only at this stage.
actually, just to make it a little bit more fun for Dan to answer afterwards, because that's something we look at a lot, like what is the best option. To be honest, I think, also perhaps to your question of what's to come, franchising in the classical sense is perhaps the one model of operating a hotel that becomes now obsolete the quickest. Because the franchise option, which was tremendously useful to an independent operator, and perhaps even still is to this day, was that you had access to a number of things such as, a recognized brand that people trusted even though they didn't know you, a distribution platform, access to a good price point because some of the purchasing was centralized and was at a cost advantage point of view. And if you look now at how ultimately online business evolves, all these things you can now bundle purchase from wherever you would like to. Currently, you still have a much better deal, and some of the franchises are quite strong. But I actually always wonder is how long that's going to last as long as someone says, well, actually, you know what, I can purchase these elements individually, and if a client wants to know that my hotel, which is in wherever, whether it's good or not, he just goes on Booking.com or TripAdvisor and says, well, there's 6 other guys that are between 40 and 50 and are Swiss that liked it in the last 6 months. How bad can it be? So I suspect that we've seen more and more of our owners and independent operators say, you know what, I'm either going to give it to a management contract where I clearly see the value, or I'm going to stay away from the franchise altogether. But maybe.
Agree, disagree. No, look, I totally agree on the fact that the brand integrity is absolutely critical to everybody. And to have brand integrity, you either need to be in control or you need to hand over control to somebody that you trust. So in Africa, for example, 95% of our pipeline is managed for all of the same reasons that were mentioned. In other places that have kind of developed management cultures, we're much more comfortable giving our baby, our brand, to the care of somebody else. Now, it does again depend on where you are in the spectrum of brands. Managing a Wyndham brand is far, far more complex than managing a Days Inn. So, the standards are more complicated, the guest expectations are more complicated. So you do need to be a more sophisticated operator to be able to do that. So, aligned. On the point about the death of franchise, wow. In fact, I think there is pretty compelling evidence that it's actually the opposite. If you look in Europe, where you have a very mature hotel market, everybody 5-10 years ago said, we're going to go in and we're going to build our brands through management. Nobody's done it. Nobody's done it for a variety of reasons. One is, without getting too boring, the owner expectation and leases and the structuring of deals in Europe. But fundamentally, all of the big brands in Europe are now competing with the biggest hotel franchisor in the world and trying to get that business that Wyndham has dominated for years. We're almost 8,000 hotels. I think we probably have, don't quote me on this, 100 managed hotels in the world. Most of them are outside of the US, most of them are in the part of the world we look at, because again, the management structure just hasn't been there historically. But we've been doing it for years, and I think all of the big guys are trying to jump at us and steal some of that business in our part of the world. So, appreciate the opinion, don't think the facts line up.
Would you consider Airbnb to be a franchise?
You're asking the questions. That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before. Airbnb a franchise? No, I don't think Airbnb is a franchise. Because I think franchises that imply some form of standardization, and I don't think Airbnb gives that level of standardization. Question from the audience.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Someone? No? Please.
Yeah. When we get back to the satisfaction subject, actually, I would like to ask you something like, for example, on the Asian side of Istanbul, when you search in Booking.com, instead of like, and then you put the ratings, customer rating, customer satisfaction, and you can get the results like smaller hotels and the bigger hotels, like you can see a little down, you know. So why do you think like it's like that? Like smaller hotels are like boutique hotels are on top, and you guys are later than that.
That one's for me, I guess, as the biggest hotel company in Turkey. Yeah, no, it's a good question. Look, we were talking about luxury earlier and around the personalization of service, and that is absolutely one of the basics, right? It's something that guests love. Now, it is really a lot easier in a 15-room hotel to provide that personalized service than it is in the 200-something room Wyndham Grand on the Asian side of Istanbul. So it's
but you can get more like employees and stuff.
You can get more employees.
Yes, and they can give some more service to guests actually.
Yeah, but generally the operational structure is so much more complicated. So it's when you're offering a full spa and 3 restaurants, there are so many touch points for the guest that the opportunity and frankly the expectation of the guest is so much higher than it is when he walks into or she walks into that 15-room boutique hotel. So, you know, they're coming in to something that they're not expecting to be an international world-class establishment. And they're getting a great service, but it's like comparing apples and oranges sometimes.
To add on to that as well, I mean, they spoke about it in the luxury sector, it's about authenticity of experience. I mean, and it's guest perception when they come in and that rating. What authenticity of experience am I expecting to get when I walk into that hotel? Versus, yes, I may be staying in a hotel with a big blue H on the outside of it, but that's going to be the same whether I'm in New York, London, Paris. But I want the authenticity of that local 15-bedroom or 20-bedroom hotel. I mean, and that's a takeaway experience for me. But it also depends on why I'm traveling. If I'm traveling on business, fantastic, I'm going to stay in a Wyndham property. But if I'm there with my family, I want that authenticity of experience, I want that small little boutique hotel, and I'm going to give it a great rating. You know, and I'm going to overlook the flaws. I might overlook the iffy breakfast and the odd smelly waiter, but it's okay.
I'm still over the smelly waiters and nothing more to say.
Thank you very much. Alakanıza çok çok teşekkür ederiz. Thank you.